compelling detective story, a cloak and dagger action, and a romantic drama, all these stories were taken from real life. The history of Kazakhstan is inseparable from the world history. Reflections on history, our version.
The road to life. First Elizabeth of Russia bestowed the area from the Fontanka embankment to the Zagorodny Prospect in St. Petersburg on royal physician Lestok. Then it was decided to construct a passage there, and as a result, Leshutkov Lane appeared in 1952. It was then renamed. An old poet clenched a dombra in his hands as if it was a rifle. A blustery wind swept through the trees. You could hear the whisper of the treetops, the echoes of the sirens, the fast beats of a metronome, crackling like loudspeakers in a reassuring verse. May my songs help you at dawn, my friends, the citizens of Leningrad, my children, the citizens of Leningrad, my pride. The writer Olga Bergolts wrote that people listened to the letter written by Jambal, a Kazakh poet, on the Leningrad radio. Olga Bergolts was an announcer. She wrote that when reading it, she had been inspired because she had seen that the citizens of Leningrad stood up to listen to the Kazakh poet Jambal's letter on the Leningrad radio. This news from Kazakhstan connected Leningrad to the whole country by invisible but strong thread. The city was alive again, and it would live. My grandfather died during the siege of Leningrad. My father died there too. Hundreds and thousands of people died from famine. Many people did not survive in the battles, which was the northern part of Lake Ladoga. As for our 314th Division, very little people survived. Chapter 1. Fierce battles will rage. There are about 50 reenactors, an audience of about 300 people, floodlights, pyrotechnics, and a short episode from the Great War. Nazi bombers carried out another raid on Leningrad in the evening of September the 8th, 1941. The mournful 900-day countdown began on Monday when Leningrad had already been encircled. Nevertheless, fortifications were built, pupils gathered crops at suburban farms and prepared houses for air defense. Nobody stopped working even during the raids. 2.5 million people, including citizens of Leningrad and refugees from occupied areas, found refuge behind the great walls of the city. Everybody tried to help the city. In this photo you can see the composer Shostakovich on roofs in wartime Leningrad. His duty was anti-aircraft warfare. Headquarters of the local air defense announces air raid, air raid. Alia Moldagulova repeated Jambal's words as if they were a prayer. Fierce battles will rage, but the life of the enemies will be impossible. Standing on the roof, she took another firebomb and put it into the water. You can see the orphanage residents on holiday in the Young Pioneer Camp near Leningrad. When World War II started, orphanage residents, including Alia, were not far away from their camp. The children were brought to Leningrad only 2 weeks later. 16-year-old Alia was a form prefect and all of the pupils loved her. She dreamed of fighting in order to free people suffering from famine and the cold in the city. Fire, which broke out at Badaev warehouses on September the 8th, 1941, it shocked all of the citizens of Leningrad. This terrible event made the people realize the meaning of the catastrophe they were faced with. In September, 300 grams of bread were distributed to children and office workers, 250 grams for the dependents and about half a kilogram to workers. 2 months later, this became an impossible dream. The fifth consecutive reduction in bread rations was announced in Leningrad on November the 20th. As a result, now 250 grams of bread are distributed through ration cards to a worker a day. The others get 125 grams a day. The shelling is continuing. Today, 100 shells have exploded in the city. Even in this situation, Leningrad City Chess Championship has started. The taste of bread during the siege was rememberable. It seemed that no delicacy was sweeter than bread, recalls Leonid. The front saved him from death by famine. A military unit adopted the orphan. I, still a kid, was a son of the Russian army. In 1944, I was wounded and readmitted to hospital. In 1945, I was discharged from hospital with no legs. That was it. I was sent to an orphanage. He was legless but hid his disability from the medical board and became one of the first people cultivating Kazakh lands. He did his best in order for that winter to never come again. In 1941 to 1942, the citizens of Leningrad were hardly alive. They got water in the Neva River, which was damaged with shells and clenched precious grams of bread consisted of bad flour. They pulled sledges with dead people. On the radio they heard voices weak from hunger. These voices said, "We wouldn't surrender, we will survive." Chapter 2. Near your sacred fences. Journalists and reporters hurried to the house of the radio with front report and sketches depicting the life of the besieged citizens. Often soldiers themselves worked as correspondents, for example, guarding the homeland Leningrad newspaper in Kazakh. None of the 5 employees were professional journalists. In total, over 40 factory newspapers in different languages were published in a besieged ring. They included the city, front and division newspapers. I lived in this world in order to ruin the rubble of the fascist thugs, so that they die near your sacred fences, not having time to retreat. Political commanders read the articles with these sacred verses in Kazakh and Russian. Like the long-awaited news from home, all the formations from Kazakhstan participated in the defense of Leningrad. 4 Kazakh formations, including about 50,000 citizens of Kazakhstan, participated in the relief of the siege of Leningrad. The 310th Akmola formation held back the enemy at the Sinyavinsk bogs. 314th defended the banks of the Svir River, preventing fascists from closing the second deadly ring around Leningrad. It included only our citizens. There were 11,000 soldiers, and General Shevelkov commanded the military officers. We can see him in this photo. Only 11th part of those who had been called up returned home to Petropavlovsk. During the first 3 months, only the 310th Akmola formation lost almost 7,000 people. We still do not know how many unknown and known heroes from Kazakhstan remain in Leningrad's soil. There were volunteers and partisans, including those who had escaped from captivity and conscripts. Sultan Baymaganbetov, who was called Sasha by his comrades in arms, threw his body at the enemies. Sniper Sarsenbay Rustenbekov killed 279 invaders. The names of the machine gunner Tastak Nazarov, close friends Ivan Gus, Shankan Kosoyev and many others went down in the historical victory too. When Jambul was writing down his verses, "People of Leningrad, my children, my pride," he obviously put in the pain and empathy with the citizens of Leningrad. However, he also meant the sons of Kazakhstan who defended Leningrad.
Сыны Казахстана, которые защищали Ленинград.
They defended the city and saved its people, leading them along the road to life. Kazakhstan gave refuge to tens of thousands of Leningrad citizens, and even after war, it remained the home for many people. Jambal came to Leningrad and was among those who defended it. Jambal adopted the people of Leningrad. He felt the great feeling of fatherhood, and what we call brotherhood of the Soviet people became tangible. Chapter 3: Alma-Ata for Leningrad. The tangible feeling of brotherhood was on land, air and in the sea when the crew's narrow quarters of the Kirov cruiser they heard painfully familiar verses. We have been relatives for a long time. Alma-Ata is closer to Leningrad than a brother or a sister. No wonder we send our young sons to the heart of the Niva. The Kirov became the main focus of the enemies at the beginning of the war. The battlecruiser started disturbing Nazis when they were in Tallinn and continued defending Leningrad for months. The Kirov battlecruiser was launched in 1934, and then the first secretary of the Leningrad Regional Committee, Sergei Kirov, wrote a letter to Kazakhstan. The letter announced that the new Kirov battlecruiser has been constructed, and Kirov Communists asked Kazakhstan's Komsomol to take this battleship under patronage. 156 sailors from Kazakhstan were on board of the heroic battlecruiser during the whole siege. Some of them arrived in 1941. The Central Committee of the Kazakhstan Komsomol called up 57 and 8 formers. The gunfire support provided by the battlecruiser prevented Hitler's army from going ahead with their plans and destroying the city before the weather turned cold. The enemy's aeroplanes inflicted serious damage on the Baltic fleet. The Kirov suffered severe damage too, but managed to endure it thanks to the support provided by the besieged city. The powerful searchlights of anti-aircraft warfare illuminated the sky over Leningrad, found the fascist vultures and helped the anti-aircraft gunners to destroy the enemy aircrafts. Hitler's air forces tried to destroy Leningrad's fire shield again in the spring of 1942. Ice Stoss Operation or Ice Impact was launched. Bombers attacked the fleet frozen to the Neva. Sailors managed to repair the damage, but the next day Nazi propagandists announced to the whole world that the hated battlecruiser had been destroyed. The Nazis destroyed her twin. It turns out that in this way they managed to deceive the enemy. The Baltic fleet treated Kazakh delegation as honored guests. They were welcomed warmly on the Kirov battlecruiser, which was under the patronage of Kazakhstan. The guests told the Baltic fleet that besides friendly greetings, the Kazakh people brought 18 wagons of food and gifts for them. Epilogue: The nightingales will sing again. After the terrible winter of 1941 to 1942, Leningrad rose from the ashes. Although the siege had not been lifted yet, the streets of the semi-destroyed city were clean. Radishes and cucumbers were blooming in urban flower beds. A tram going along the Neva River made a lovely sound. The citizens of Leningrad did not make a last-ditch effort any longer. They were invigorated and believed that the old poet said, nightingales would sing again. Our family will be free. Citizens of Leningrad, my children. Citizens of Leningrad, my pride. A young victim of siege, Leah, Alia Mondagulova, was so glad to read the letters from Leningrad, she had already become an experienced sniper. These are Alia's classmates from sniper school. Here they are training. They were her close friends. They were together at the Northwestern Front. In the same battalion, the two girls witnessed Alia's heroic deed and her death. Being fatally wounded, she led her comrades into battle. She fought for Leningrad, for Kazakhstan, for homeland and victory. 2 weeks after her death, the siege of Leningrad, the city she had considered her home, was lifted. These festive lights over the Kirov battlecruiser were in her honor too. They were a tribute to hundreds and thousands of victims who had built this road to life.